Thank you, Sharon. Now, we all say this, I'll never put my mum or dad in a home, and then we do, and we feel terribly guilty about it, even though there are circumstances often beyond your control. It's an unusual topic, I know, for Father's Day, but to talk about it, from Signpost Aged Care Services, Margaret Harrison, good evening.
Good evening, Derryn.
It is a moment that many of us, most of us, are going to have to face or have faced. And
no, very few people actually end up going into nursing homes at the end of the day. It's only about 8% of the population.
Is that right?
It's really quite small.
People die at home?
No, not so much die at home or die in the hospital or die quite quickly, but it's a very small portion of the population.
Well, we had to do it with my father, and yes. I had a number of friends, must be part of the 8 or 10%. Mm-hmm. But that moment when, you know, you do say, I'd never put my mother and father, never do that, never do that. But then sometimes, especially these days with dementia,
you have no choice.
There's no choice, is there?
There is no choice. It becomes very, very difficult to look after someone with dementia, and heartbreaking too to watch your loved one deteriorate. It's really very sad.
Well, I also think there's a say. I mean, you may say, look, I can do this. You know, my wife, my husband is this, but I can do it. Yes. But then you get trapped because you can't maybe leave the apartment or the house because they might turn the gas on and leave it on and turn it into a time bomb. So there's things you reach a stage where you can't do it.
Absolutely, you reach a stage when you can't do it, and it's also very harmful to the relationship for the person who's caring for them too, because they resent it. You know, they're often at the end of their life as well, thinking, is this going to be how it is for the rest of my life? I have no freedom, I can't leave the house. And often moving a partner into care actually improves the relationship because you're not tied to them and you can go and visit them and have quality time with them rather than just...
That's interesting because I got, when we said we were going to do this topic tonight,
yes.
I got a lot of mail from people, emails from people and Facebook comments, one from a woman who's actually taking her mother out of care. She's in a situation where she's improved, but from one man who said, my dad, we put him in care, he is enjoying himself, he is living a better quality life than we are, and I'm having a better life. So.
Absolutely, for both people. And many of the facilities, the aged care facilities, do a fantastic job of looking after people with dementia. They keep them occupied during the day. They don't have the stress of having them 24 hours a day. They're not kept awake at night by these people. You know, have people there overnight, so they're not tired all the time. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes it's much better for the relationship.
How do you broach it to a partner or to a parent that the time has come? We have to put you into care.
They often work it out themselves. They just can't cope anymore. Or something that is very common is the carer ends up going into hospital, like the partner has a heart attack or some other incident and they're in hospital, so the person with dementia is at home and of course can't care for themselves and they need to be cared for, and in that instance you can get them into care on respite for the carer to get them in quickly for care, to someone else to look after them, and then they can stay there. That is often a good trick. It's a release for the person who puts them in there. It can work quite well.
Well, I know two recent cases where that has happened and the person who's gone into care, that's a way to put this, thinks it's temporary and then a week becomes a month, it's permanent, and they still keep saying, will I be going home soon?
But often they say that they're going home, and we had one client quite recently who packed her bag every single morning to go back home and then unpacked it during the day, but was perfectly happy with the care that she was being very well cared for, but you know, she just thought that she was going home tomorrow. She'd only been there for a short while, but she was happy. She was very happy.
Before we get to this stage, there's another one which more families face, I guess, and that is, how do you stop your father from driving the car?
I am very, very reluctant to remove a licence from someone. Very reluctant. The single biggest problem for the ageing population is social isolation, and you take away their car and they're even more isolated.
But my dad caused 2 accidents and he was at fault both times, and if we didn't force him to sell his car, he may have killed somebody and it wouldn't have been him.
That being said, there comes a time when you do need to remove someone's licence, I think, and you can ring Vic Roads or the state organisation and they will come and test them. That's not a problem.
Because the socialising thing is important, but you can also get restricted licences now where a person's only allowed to drive within 10 k's of their home or 5 k's of their home.
Yep.
Not allowed to drive after 5 p.m. or not allowed to drive after dusk.
Yep.
So those limited licences are also should be encouraged.
They should absolutely be encouraged. Did your father restrict himself? Because most people restrict themselves. They don't drive at night.
He's been a taxi driver, a bus driver. He could.
Okay, right.
He was until 150 if he could have.
You couldn't stop him. No. But most people do actually stop themselves, and they'll only drive during the day, and they won't drive at night time, and they'll only drive down the shops or drive to their friend's house. But it is very isolating, and it's also at that age you can't really catch public transport. You know, you find it very difficult to get on a tram because the trams don't stop properly, or they move before you can get a seat, and you can't get a seat on the train. So it's very intimidating for an older person to catch a tram or a train or a bus sometimes.
Now, the other area here too about, we talked about dementia, forcing somebody to have to go into care. Yeah. What about the retirement village idea where mum and dad both decide, hey, you know, we can downsize, and if we're going to downsize, why not downsize into a actual retirement village where it's all designed for people like us?
Well, I think retirement villages are a fantastic option because of that issue of social isolation. They're very active. They're like a resort. They're a great place to go. They're they can be very, very expensive, particularly because they take a fee when you leave. Most of them will take a substantial portion of the sale price when you leave. Yeah. And they're also expensive because you've got to pay monthly fees. To get that resort lifestyle, you do end up paying a lot of fees for that. But they're a lifestyle choice, and they're a fantastic choice for a lot of people. The issue with retirement villages is that they usually don't care for you at the end, or can't care for you when your care needs are too high. So then you would have to move into a facility that can care for you, and it can be quite difficult to get the cash out to sell them. There's been a lot of issues with liquidating a retirement village, selling.
Yeah, because in a retirement village, it is quote resorty, and therefore, so suddenly if one of you suddenly needs medical care, a 24-hour treatment, they're not equipped to do that.
No, they're not. No, very few of them are equipped to do it. I love the model of a retirement village next to an aged care facility, but there's not a lot in town. There tends to be more of them in rural areas, not so much in town. But they're a fantastic idea, so you can visit your partner.
Believe it or not, I registered the name Cocoon Lodge after the movie. I was going to build a retirement village out of Melbourne for entertainment people and show business people. And we had it all organised, 10 little props. Each had a front porch and your own 2-bedroom place. But then we realised that Molly Meldrum would probably move in with us, so we didn't.
They are great. They are fantastic. I think they're wonderful. But the families often object because they are so expensive, and you do need to understand how expensive they are before you buy.
And that extrication thing is very tricky.
Getting out, and then getting out and getting enough money for the bond. There is legislation that deals with that in certain circumstances, that you can get your money back out 6 months after. In most states that legislation exists, but it's still an issue for a lot of people to actually pay for the accommodation payment.
I know it's a strange topic for Father's Day, but I think it's an important one. So
absolutely.
All right, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Margaret Harrison from Signpost Aged Care Services. We'll be back.